I think I should have turned the damaged model off. This could be carnage. The wide field of view makes this even more scary. Come on, PIMAX 8KX, help me through that. Pull up, pull up, pull up, 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 up. Oh, wow. Hello everybody and welcome on board to the SimHanger. Today we're going to continue our review of PIMAX's VR headset, the mighty 8KX, featuring the widest FOV of any commercial facing headset in the market today. Over the last couple of days I've been putting it to the test, and I'll be sharing with you the configuration and setup that I found the best for me so far. This is a direct follow-up to my earlier video. In that video we reviewed the specifications. We also took a look at the excellent PIMAX VR Experience config utility, and we also took it for a quick spin in Microsoft Flight Simulator in Iceland. In addition to sharing my settings with you, I'll also be showing you the two stress tests that I did. The first and main one is a Chicago-based test that I usually do, and the second test will feature Aerosoft's CRJ, and it's based here at the airport that you're looking at right now, Las Americas International. It's a real-life replica of the airport that's based in Santo Domingo in the Dominican Republic, and it's from a fairly new developer, BravoAirspace. And the attention to detail here, well, it's stunning. You're watching the SimHanger channel. My name's Mark and let's get started. These are the PC specs used for all the tests shown here. In addition, one point of clarification. The PIMAX headset can be used with either the Steam or the Microsoft Store version of Microsoft Flight Simulator. As the Sim uses the Windows Mixed Reality interface for VR, you need to download the Windows Mixed Reality for Steam VR, a free download to use it on the PIMAX headset. The graphics card I'm using today is the RTX 3090, and the NVIDIA graphics driver used is 471.41. These are the VR settings that I settled on. They're a combination of high and medium settings largely. And I found this mix in combination with my hardware setup gave me the performance I was looking for. I backed off to low on some heavy hitters such as ambient occlusion. This is PIMAX's VR Experience, a very useful and intuitive tool to set up your VR config. If you've got the Steam version of Microsoft Flight Simulator, importing it in here is a straightforward and automatic process. If not, you'll need to manually import it and specify the path to your exe file, which is on your C drive, regardless of what install you did. This will require you to get access to the Windows Apps directory on your C drive, and that's a hidden directory within the Program Files subfolder. I'm not going to go through the details of how to do that in this video. There's plenty of information out there on Google and on YouTube as well. Once imported, you get a local game profile and a Steam profile. Let's check out my settings under the local game profile first. For my FOV, I chose the second largest setting, the 150 degrees horizontal, which equates to about 170 degrees as measured by other headsets. On the larger FOV setting, which is 170 degrees horizontal or 200 degrees FOV, I wasn't able to get a good enough performance without too much of a compromise in terms of my graphics quality and fidelity. My system simply didn't have enough grunt. Looks like I'm going to have to wait a little while for better PC hardware to take advantage of the 200 degree FOV. But quite frankly, I'm not bothered. 170 degrees FOV, well, it's massive anyway. Moving on to the render quality. I have mine set at 1.5 or Ultra. Now this is a complex subject and I'm not sure even I fully understand it. But there is a direct relationship to the Steam setting resolution per eye and the render quality you set here. By default, it's set to 1. And during my tests I pushed it as far as 2. In a nutshell, I found I got better performance and better graphics quality by simply pushing up the render quality here and compromising in the Steam setting. If your graphics cards are 2080 Super, I would probably leave that render quality at 1. If you've got a 2080 Ti, well, I'd probably only move it up to 1.25. That would apply to the 3070 as well. I think I should also say at this point that these are the settings that worked for me. They may not work the same for you depending on your hardware configuration. I also have to acknowledge I've only spent just over 2 days playing around with the settings, so my tests are not exhaustive. All I'm doing is sharing what I've got so far and what's giving me a very good performance, one that I'm happy with. It's a performance level that's equal or slightly better than my HP Reverb. Unfortunately for Microsoft Flight Simulator, you do need to have parallel projection to on. This ensures that the two images, one from each eye, overlap correctly. The downside being a big performance hit, but there's no option available at this time. The hidden mask area should also be enabled. It cuts down on the unnecessary processing by your graphics card. Vive compatibility is not appropriate. I'm not running any Vive games. And I have smart smoothing enabled. Smart smoothing is something similar to asynchronous reprojection. For me, it cuts down the number of micro pauses, etc. that I experienced. You should experiment with it both on and off. Fixed foveated rendering, I have this disabled. I found a noticeable drop in performance when I enabled this. And even when enabled, I couldn't really see a difference. What it does is that it reduces the resolution of the items on the periphery of your vision and therefore reduce the load on your system. To get better black levels and sharpen the image, I turn the brightness down by 2 and turn the contrast up by 2. You need to experiment with this, but you do need to do this in conjunction with the backlighting. And we'll cover this point shortly. Under the Advanced tab, you can see that my 8KX is set to native 4K mode, and I'm running at a refresh rate of 75 Hz, which gave me the best performance. The brightness in the headset or panel backlight I set to +80. Otherwise, things are just too dim and not bright enough. Everything is too subdued. IPD offsets just help you to fine-tune your view and help get each eye in the sweet spot. I haven't changed these as I had no problem getting into the sweet spot even though I've got an IPD of only 60. As the PIMAX features a dual mode, I also experimented with the upscale from 1440p to 4K. For me there was a noticeable drop in performance, but again it's something you should experiment with, particularly for medium to lower end systems. Just a quick note on setting the backlight. It can be done by choosing this icon here. Click on that and you get the opportunity to change the various levels of backlighting. From what I've seen, common settings seem to be anything from 70 up to 90. With a backlighting of 80 and my brightness in the other settings turned down to -2, I found the night lighting to be just about right, and the blacks were a deeper black. And lastly, before moving on to the Steam settings, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Mr. 4sec Shark, who was kind enough to give me some advice and share his settings with me. And that gave me a great starting point for my tests. The Steam settings can also be set in the VR Experience app. Here I'm showing you them directly in Steam. Running at 75 Hz, motion smoothing is on. And here you can see I've turned the resolution down to 32%. But the only reason it's 32% is I still want the resolution per eye to be more or less 4K, which it is. Remember, I turned the render scale up in the PIMAX application to 1.5 or Ultra. This has a direct impact here. PIMAX recommend for 2080 Super and 2080 Ti to be something from 2700 up to about 3100, and for higher end graphics cards up to 3300, but I was happy with what I had. I love being in VR, but I've got to have the graphics to go with it. The advantage of the PIMAX VR experience application is I could leave the Steam settings general at 100% and change the one just for Microsoft Flight Simulator, which in reality is what I did. Any long-time subscribers will be very familiar with my stress test. We start off at runway 36 at Z Design's Meigs Field, a beautiful rendition of this somewhat historic airport. I did a review on this airport earlier in the year and I'll leave links to that video in the notes below. We're going to take off a bank to the left and fly over Chicago. And for this test we're in the Beechcraft Bonanza G36, featuring full PBR texturing, amazing detail, and of course it has 2 G1000 panels to add further load to the system. Recording in VR in the PIMAX with its wide field of view is very difficult indeed. The Steam mirror shows stutters that are not there in the headset. The default 2-eye view is hard to get an assessment, so here I've zoomed in to the right eye. It does create a little bit of distortion, which again is not visible in the headset, but it does give you the best overview of how smooth the flight is or isn't. The VR settings are as shown earlier. I have one piece of advice for those trying to configure a PIMAX headset. Ignore the frame rate counter and turn it off. It's not about frame rates, it's about how smooth it feels in VR. Right now I'm getting 25 to 30 frames per second, but it feels more like 40. Gear up as I get level with the main terminal. Flaps up and hold that view for a while. It's between 10 AM and midday, so I'm getting a good shadow cast, and also I've got plenty of water for reflections, again adding to the system load. I want a low fly over photogrammetry Chicago, so pulling back on the prop lever and the throttle. Look to the right as I pass that ship. Having smart smoothing on does create some artifacting, but it's not bad. We'll now start our bank to the left and we'll have a look down at the boats and ships. And we're going to be following the waterway through downtown Chicago and just skimming over the top of the buildings. The combination of the water and the buildings puts a suitable medium to heavy load on the system. And from my tests, if I can fly well here, well I can set it and forget it, because I can fly anywhere. In the headset I am getting a bit of an exaggerated wobble through the prop of the image. I'm checking for how smooth it is. I'm also checking for any screen tearing. I don't want that. If I get that, I need to turn some settings down. I do get the odd micro pause, but I get that more or less in any VR headset anyway. Just check I can read that Holiday Inn sign, which I can. And now between the two towers and head towards the Chicago Tribune building. This field of view is just gigantic. It's amazing. I wish I could show you that, but I can't record it accurately. Perhaps this view can demonstrate it more clearly from the middle of the cockpit panel all the way to the tip of the wing.
500.
For our second flight, and as mentioned earlier, we're in the Caribbean, in Santo Domingo, Dominican Republic. This is payware scenery from a developer, BravoAirspace, and it costs something in the region of about 17 or 18 euros, available from SimMarket. This airport has been absolutely beautifully done, and if you regularly fly in this area, well, it's certainly worth a look. There are literally hundreds of handmade objects here. I'll leave links in the notes below. The advantages of the large FOV in this headset really come to bear when you are in a jet. You can see so much more. We're departing Las Americas International in the Caribbean. Now the CRJ is a fairly complicated aircraft, and this is a large airport by any measure, but it's super smooth in the headset for me. Just over 100 knots and we're rotating and gear up. In terms of readability, I can read the gauges in front of me, and I can read the FMS on my side, but the FMS on the other side, well, it's not totally clear, and I can't really read the co-pilot's gauges based on the settings that I've got right now. I can make some of them out, but not all of them. I have to lean in just a little bit to get clarity. But it's super smooth, and again, just a reminder, the distortion that you're seeing, it's from the recording of a wide FOV. It's not visible in this PIMAX 8KX headset. This PIMAX headset is an enthusiast level product, and you will require the appropriate level of hardware to run it if you want both performance and wide field of view. And I hope today in this video I've been able to demonstrate that. It does of course have two smaller field of view settings. Small, which is probably the same as the valve index, and what PIMAX call the potato view, which is a 90-degree horizontal. For lesser systems they could run at these FOVs. I have my third and final video coming up on the PIMAX 8KX review, and in that video we'll be looking at the pros and cons of this headset and who should consider buying it and those who shouldn't, as well as sharing my personal views. Until then, thank you very much for joining me. I hope you found this useful and informative. See you again soon, and bye for now.